Okay, today I'm with Tenzin Josh, an internationally renowned meditation master and spiritual teacher, trained in both Eastern and Western disciplines, with over 35 years of experience, with degrees and masters in both psychology and philosophy. Tenzin's passionate about helping people to find inner peace, joy, and well-being through ancient wisdom and modern science. And luckily for us, he's part of the Tree of Life anti-cancer lifestyle community and program. Tenzin, hi.
Hi, how are you doing, James?
All good. Yeah, all good. Thanks so much for joining us. We're separated physically by quite a distance. I'm
Mm-hmm.
the UK, you're Thailand, but the
Uh-huh.
beauty of technology, we're together online, so all good. Now, for those that don't know you, should we start with a bit of backstory? Maybe tell
Mhm.
us who you are, where you grew up, and what you loved to do when you were a child.
Sure. So, as you briefly mentioned there, my background is in both Western philosophy and psychology and also Eastern traditions, although Eastern traditions I probably spent more time and studied more deeply within. My coming to those things came about basically from a fairly normal upbringing, but one in which I always was very conscious of the fact that there must be something deeper in life than what most people were aware of. And that was something which drove me very strongly when I was young and when I was even a small child, but particularly as a teenager, and led me in the end to traveling, finding my teachers, my Tibetan Buddhist teachers, and becoming a monk for 15 years. I was a monk with alongside the Dalai Lama. And during that time, I spent many years in meditation, but I also spent a long time in a study monastery studying up to PhD level in Tibetan language, the Buddhist teachings. And since that, then I've combined those two things to try and bring this wisdom, this happiness, this joy, and particularly as with what we're talking about at the moment, this ability of using the mind, using the power of the mind to heal the body. And then I've brought that into what I'm doing now. So my history is both Western and Eastern, but probably more Eastern than Western. I come from a very traditional um, Buddhist philosophical background. It's one which has been there for a very long time and is very well understood and very well practiced and very well experienced as well as by thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of millions of people and meditators over the last couple of thousand years. So it comes from that tradition, that very ancient tradition, but it also has my work also has elements of the modern scientific interpretations as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, so I suppose a nice combination of um, being a normal person in the world,
Mm-hmm.
with the kind of training and background and interest in a more of a spiritual, more connected approach to life, I suppose.
Absolutely, and I think that when I look at those two aspects of my life, when I was a monk and now not being a monk, then actually not being a monk has many benefits, not just personally, but for my teaching as well, because it's enabled me to see the world as most people live it, and to be sort of directly engaging with worldly things, which doesn't always happen when you're a monk. So I have found that it's now 15 years since I left the monastery, that those years have been very useful, if not more useful, if anything. The monk was the basic training, but coming out and living in the world has been where the training has really come to life.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I think it's important. I a few years ago, actually, in the first COVID lockdown in the UK, I wanted to take on an allotment and grow some of my own fruit and veg again, because I had a bit more time not going into the office. And I took a biodynamic gardening course, and at the start of that course, the lecturer was talking about cosmic influences, and I'm curious, but I'm not fully spiritual or religious, and I actually found that at first it was a bit, well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by cosmic influences, but then he was very he was very able to actually translate that into something that I suppose most people would understand, such as gravity from the moon is a cosmic
Right.
influence. So it sounds like you've got a really good mix of being able to translate a spiritual approach to life to regular people, I suppose, ultimately, and normal people.
Very much so, and it really boils down to using the teachings which have come from the East, and the knowledge and the wisdom that's come from the East, but putting it into everyday language so that everybody can use it. Not calling it religious, or maybe you could use the word spiritual, but certainly not calling it Buddhist or Hindu or any other tradition. It's just about your mind. It's just about your happiness. It's about bringing joy, well-being, and health into your life. And that's there in all those teachings, but obviously it's a bit inaccessible if you don't take those teachings as your religion or whatever it is, and you don't have to do that. That's the point. You can use the wisdom, and in fact, you're recommended by all my teachers to do that, to use the wisdom and use the techniques that are available within those teachings. But you don't have to become Buddhist or Hindu or anything else to do that. You can just use this in your life, and they're very, very effective. Very effective.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, applying it to each individual's kind of unique circumstances or day to day. That's brilliant.
Absolutely.
That's brilliant. Thanks for a bit of backstory. So that's kind of, I suppose, quite a condensed window of time you've just taken us through. You name dropped the Dalai Lama, which is must have been a pretty amazing experience. What do you get up to now in your spare time, and how sort of aligned is that with what you do as a meditation master?
I think life, whatever you do in life, is always going to be aligned to what you do as a meditation teacher, because meditation is about your life, because your life is your mind, your life, your experience, your happiness, your well-being. One of the things which is fundamental to our lives, and certainly to our practice in terms of meditation and working with our minds, is the whole idea and the concept that our world is not objectively out there. It's not objectively happening to us. It's much more a question of being created by the way we see it. In other words, and this is something which is scientifically much more on the table than it used to be in quantum physics and stuff like that, the idea that your consciousness of something makes it what it is, rather than it being some sort of objective object out there and being intrinsically what it is. And that means that everything is related to your meditation practice, because although my life now is involved with children, and of course I work mostly as a psychotherapist. When I work 50-60% of my work is with cancer as well, and that work obviously is particularly focused on working with people and working with their minds. But working with your mind is something you should be doing 24 hours a day, actually. It's something which is there. Your mind is always with you. And the way you're experiencing the world, the way I'm dealing with my kids and my family and my wife and the rest of my life is intricately connected with my meditation practice. If I'm not practicing, which I have to say I don't not practice, because I always do, because I have commitments, but if I don't practice, then I know things are going to go wrong. I know that life is going to be much more difficult, that my health is going to suffer, that my family is going to suffer, that my ability to be there for others and be as kind as I can, as open as I can, as non-judgmental as I can, all comes from my meditation practice. And so every part of my life is connected with those things. It cannot not be. And I think that's what I've found personally also with people I work with, and especially cancer patients. Cancer patients come to me looking for getting their mind in the place to heal. And often they will start off, that's my intention. I want to heal. I want to heal from this disease. But as they work and as they move along, they find that actually what they're doing is so much more than just healing from the disease. It's actually bringing in a whole new element into their lives. It's transforming their whole lives, and their lives change in such incredible ways that actually in the end, the disease is far less important, and the life change is so much more important, even for a cancer. So it's so connected with your everyday life, and it's not just about working to heal yourself. It's working to bring joy into your life, to make yourself happy, to bring happiness to the people around you, your family, your colleagues, your friends, and so forth. That's what it's all about. Is bringing joy to your and everybody around you's life. And when people start to get into that and realize that, then it becomes amazing. It becomes so beautiful. So yeah, certainly I would say all of my life is connected with my meditation practice. If I give some specific examples, I tend to do things which we should also do more of, and that is to try and be in the moment with things, with whatever you're doing. With your children on the floor with your children, be there with your children. Don't be at work. Don't be thinking about yesterday or tomorrow. One of the things I love to do now that I'm not a monk is dance. And I find dancing is a beautiful way to bring yourself into the moment. Other people may do it different ways. There may be extreme sports, it may be gardening, it may be all different things. But those moments in our life when we lose ourselves and we're really there in the moment are very precious moments. And that's what meditation is teaching you, actually. That's one of the things that meditation is teaching you to do. And that's one of the ways to be healthy, because if you're living in the moment, you're not anxious, because anxiety is always about the future. You're not worried, because worry is about the past. Those things are always, when you're living in the present moment, it's very difficult to have negative emotions. And if you don't have those negative emotions, then you don't get the issues that those negative emotions cause, both physically and mentally. So those sorts of aspects of my own life are also very important when I'm in the moment. It's not just dancing is one of the favorite things, but being with the kids or going to the beach and swimming or cycling, and these are things as well where you can be in the moment, and so all your life should be connected with your practice, actually.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I find personally on my own journey, I found mindfulness and being present has been such a significant game changer. Historically, I'm a planner and a thinker, and historically I've worried about the future. I've worried about my pension. I've worried about retirement. There was a great the minimalists have a podcast, and one of them mentioned worrying about the future is praying for the worst to happen. I just thought that was so spot on. So the work I've done on myself has been to, actually I live the majority of my life in the present, and I have a nod to the future. And like you say, to be mindful of now means I enjoy my time with my son, or enjoy when we go out and have adventures outdoors. You actually experience what you're experiencing now, rather than your mind is somewhere else, even though you might be physically in a certain location. So
it doesn't eliminate planning for the future from your mind either. There's a lovely Tibetan expression, actually, which is very well used and very well understood, and that is that plan very long term, plan as long term as you can, but live in the moment. So those two things together are really sum it up. It's a very, very good expression, very useful. I'm not translating it very well, but the essence is that plan for the future, but live in the moment.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, with myself and my son, we're together every other week, and we our thing now is we have loads of ideas, and some of them become plans. So then our expectation is we're not constantly planning, and we don't have a specific expectation as to what's happening next. We've got kind of a broader range of ideas. So that's all good. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, it's something we could talk about for hours. I've definitely found mindfulness kind of pound for pound one of the best practices for me personally.
It's not everything. I mean, one of the things that is important to point out when we're talking about mindfulness is because due to the MBSR and the mindfulness movement in the world, that mindfulness has become sort of almost like the goal. It's not. Mindfulness is a tool. Mindfulness is a tool which allows you to work with your mind. It's not the goal. It's not the end of everything. And just living in the moment is not enough. There's much more that you need to do than that. But living in the moment is very beautiful. It's very useful.
Agreed. Which is a bit of a segue into your last passionate debate. I love my work with the cancer coach and the people I talk to and deal with, and we are ultimately all very passionate, because what we do in our day-to-day life what we do at work is actually our life, which I love, and you already touched on that. What was kind of your last passionate debate, and how did it go? What was the topic of the debate?
Passionate debate when I was a monk, do you mean, or are you talking about after that?
No, now. What was your kind of most recent debate of passionate debate, and what were you engaged in?
Debate. To be honest, debating is something which we did in the monastery. We did many hours a day, and if you want to look up Tibetan monks debating, you'll see it's all very, very vivid and very. It's a lot of movement, a lot of shouting, it's very, very active Tibetan debating, and we spent many hours a day, every day, debating in the monastery. I wasn't particularly good at it, and also I was doing it in a foreign language, so it wasn't easy. But it was very, very helpful. It really deepens. The thing about debate is that if you don't debate, if you don't question what you're learning, if you're not questioning what you're learning, you tend not to learn very well. So debate is very important as a learning tool. And that's what it has to be. It shouldn't be done for any other reason. It shouldn't be done for competition or for winning or all those things, because then it becomes negative. But certainly a back and forth, and that back and forth between myself and another person is really important to learn things. So in a sense, all of the people I work with, there is a degree of debating, if you like, from the point of view that we're trying to establish things, and I want those things to be established in their minds, not to be something which I'm just telling people, because that doesn't work. It's not so effective. So a lot of the way that I work with people is to sort of put things to them and say, what do you think about this? Or how did this make sense, or whatever. And one of the fundamental sort of issues which I've come across with everybody, almost everybody, some people are very on the ball and they get it very easily, but most people, including myself, it takes time. One of the fundamental issues which we talk about is that one we mentioned before, of how everything is coming from the mind. Because if you don't get that point, if you still feel that there is something out there in the world which can make you happy forever, whether it's food, drink, a person, a holiday, money, power, sex, whatever it may be, if you believe there's something out there which has the capacity to make you happy forever, then you're always going to chase it. And unfortunately, we live in a world where that's very much rammed down our throats from media, from advertising, from TV, from all sorts of things, from the society we live in. It's almost designed in a way that, you know, the idea that the more you have, the more you possess, the more you consume, the more you imbibe into yourself, the happier you're going to become. And that's the biggest lie that's ever been propagated. It's a complete and utter lie. And it's one which is, you know, religions have always understood. Happiness comes from inside yourself, nowhere else. Happiness is an internal quality of your mind. It's not something that comes from out there in the world. And that's the most important point which people need to understand if they want to work with their minds. Because obviously working with your minds means applying your attention to your mind, focusing on your mind, getting to know your mind. And you're not going to want to do those things if you don't see how important the mind is towards your happiness, that really your happiness is completely dependent upon your mind, nothing else. And if you don't get that, then why would you work? You're going to continue to be distracted. Even when you try and meditate, for example, you're going to be distracted off to other things, because you're not going to hold your attention, because you don't really get the point that that's where your happiness is coming from. And therefore, you're going to be led astray by anything which comes along, mentally or physically or verbally or whatever comes across. You're going to be pulled away by it. You're not going to stop yourself being pulled away by it, because you still feel that's where happiness comes from. So that basic point about what is it that makes us happy, where does happiness come from, it's so important to everything that we do in our life. And it's very relevant here in terms of our healing, because healing ourselves, you know, we tend to feel, and you know, obviously here at the Cancer Coach, we're doing this, we're following this holistic way of healing ourselves. And there are elements to that, such as, you know, the diet, the exercise, and all sorts of things, which are, of course, they're very useful and very important. But in my experience, it's very clear that if you don't work with your mind in your healing, then that's the one thing that if you don't work, it's not going to work. It's simply not going to work, because your body is dependent so much upon your mind. It's so dependent upon your mind. And if you miss that connection and you don't work with that connection, you can do all the treatments you want. You can eat the perfect food, you can exercise perfectly, but it doesn't work. You know, I've been working with a few anti-aging clinics here where I live, and I've worked with them on and off for years, but they brought me in recently because what they've found is they've got the greatest treatments. They've got these beautiful IVs, they've got NAD, they've got peptides, they've got anti-aging treatments and IVs and all these different fantastic treatments, really, you know, a lot of very new and very useful and very, very effective treatments. But what they found was that if somebody comes to their clinic, it doesn't matter if they're a billionaire and they can buy whatever treatment they want. If they come with stress, the treatments don't work. None of the treatments work. And they've realized that the only way they can get these people to actually benefit from these treatments is to work with their minds first. They have to reduce the stress first, or the anxiety or the fear or whatever mental aspect it is which is stopping them. Because if they don't, treatment doesn't work. And I think it's a very good example and a very similar thing in terms of what we're talking about here with cancer. If you don't work with your mind, you're not giving yourself a fair chance. You're really not giving yourself. Don't rely upon external treatments. Don't rely upon diet, upon exercise. Yes, those are useful. They're important. They're part of the picture. They're part of the jigsaw, but they're not the most important part. And I've worked with people who do none of that and yet still recover because they work with their minds. So that's, one of the, when we're talking about debate and the stuff that we really need to understand, that's one of the most important things we need to get and understand.
Agreed. Yeah, which is, I suppose, one reason why the Tree of Life anti-cancer lifestyle program starts with stress management and behavior change, stress management and emotional well-being, because we absolutely totally agree and believe that is the foundation of overall health. And exactly like you say, that there's a great metaphor that, because you were saying often it's about looking within yourself rather than trying to buy the next thing. It's very difficult to buy happiness through things. There's a great metaphor that's like a sculptor always starts with say a large piece of marble, will always remove and remove and remove until you have the beautiful statue. And that's a bit of a metaphor for looking within. It's, and again, my own personal journey, I found that removing things from my life, looking at the sort of the foundations of who I am and what I've got in my mind, has been really very, very helpful.
Yes,
and
exactly.
we've and on that we found this, I suppose, three things related to improving maybe fulfillment or meaning or overall health. It is a curiosity. I suppose people do need to have a curiosity as to the sorts of things that could change. Then yes, absolutely, at foundational level is stress management, and then ultimately learning how to change. Then the rest is possible, isn't it? The finding the right diet, improving your sleep and getting into exercise routines, that
And
all
the rest is
happens.
not only, that's right, and the rest is not only possible, but it's also much more doable, because if you don't get the fundamental point about your mind, that's where your happiness has come from. If you're still looking, for example, for happiness in food, you're not going to want to eat a healthy diet because you don't like the taste, and it's going to make you miserable, because that thing that you want to make you happy is you can't eat it anymore. So you're going to be miserable, and miserable people don't get better. That's one of the fundamental things I've seen over the years again and again. Miserable people don't get better. You need joy. You need happiness. You need well-being inside you if you want to get better. And that's something that's really important as well.
Agreed. And now I'd just love to circle back. You gave us a bit of your backstory, but could you expand a bit more on what inspired you to go on that journey? You gave us a whistle-stop tour of your journey, which to some people could seem quite extreme, to going to live life as a monk, and then coming back into kind of regular day-to-day life. What was an original inspiration or a light bulb moment as a kind of or a main motivator to seek a more connected life?
I think that very similar to many people, what leads you to try and do those things is looking at life around you and looking at the reality of life around you and seeing that suffering is endemic in just about in everybody's life, and that the normal ways that we tend to look for happiness, which you see around you, wealthy people, famous people, rich people, whatever it may be, that normal way of looking for happiness just doesn't work. And that's what I saw very strongly in my childhood, and especially in my teenage years, that the way my parents, they were comfortable, they were reasonably well off, they had everything they wanted, and yet there was a real lack of happiness there. And I saw that around me everywhere. The ways that people were trying to be happy mostly was food, drink, money, cars, houses, whatever it may be, external things. But it just wasn't working. I could see it wasn't working. And I tried whatever I could to try and, well, there must be another way. There must be something else. And actually what that consisted of in my teenage years was my, experimenting with different things and doing all sorts of stuff that you do when you're a teenager, and becoming a biker and a monk, a biker and a punk, and all those sorts of, extreme things, to try and find happiness, to try and find, well, there must be another way. There must be something else which does it. And of course, those things don't work either. And it was only when I came across spiritual teachings, when I found something that actually works, and it really does work. And this is the point that that is so important, but it does work. It's the one thing that I've found that actually does work. It makes you more happy, it makes you more confident, it makes you more joyful. And that's what I found very luckily at a young age. So then it wasn't a question of being motivated or inspired to that. It was like, well, that's the only option, actually. Not in a bad way, not in a negative way, and that I would like other options. No, it was a beautiful option. But it was the only one, because actually it's the only one which works. Working with your mind is the only way to be happy. It really is, because that's where happiness lies. So it was more a question of that. It was just there was nothing else. There was no other road. And so that's the road I took, and I'm very, very lucky and very fortunate that I did, actually.
Brilliant. Yeah, a realization that it's just logical. It just felt right.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly. Brilliant.
And what was it? Yeah.
Yes, agreed. And what do you feel is your kind of in your professional life today? What would you say is a proud moment so far?
I have many, but I would say at the moment I have lots of proud. I have about four, I think it's four, maybe five, all women actually, that I'm working with at the moment, privately, cancer patients. Every single one of them is or is almost cancer-free. And they did that with holistic methods. None of them have done radiation or chemotherapy or even immunotherapy. All of them have done natural treatments. They've changed their diet, they've changed their lifestyle, but they've focused mostly very intensely on the meditation. And that's what they all strongly believe has got them through. And the reason for that, we'll talk about that at a different time, but it's, it's all about that happiness. It's about that well-being. It's about that transformation within the mind, that power within the mind to heal the body. And if you can get that, if you can get that power in your mind, if you can get the strength, the joy, and everything in your mind, then you can almost do anything. And so, proudest moments are definitely when I've worked with people and they've healed. And I've been fortunate to have that happen many times over the last 6-7 years. I've been working particularly within cancer. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. There's no better feeling in the world than when one of your clients message you saying, "I've just had a test and I'm free." There's no better feeling than that in the world. So yes, those are the things I'd be proud of, definitely.
Brilliant. Yeah, and you are with somebody on their journey that is so intimate and intense that to get that sort of feedback and an ultimate result is pretty incredible. So yeah, fantastic.